All right, welcome back to Blue by 90. I'm Justin, joined by Tanner today, and it is August. It's the calendar flipped, and I can feel football here. I'm fucking pumped, dude. I'm pumped.
I'm with you. The thing that I always and I mentioned this in our last show, but like there are certain like weather things and like natural occurrences like cicadas, like the Jim Harbaugh cicadas thing. Like I'm surprised I haven't heard that quote from him.
Right.
But you hear the cicadas, you get up, the grass is a little wet, you got a little frost on the ground, a little dew on the ground, whatever, and you're like, oh, you could just feel it. You could just feel the energy in the air. The students are going to come back here soon, which they make Ann Arbor kind of go. It's nice when you can go to like breakfast or lunch and not wait forever, but I also like miss them almost like getting run over by me because they're not paying attention on State Street. So it's going to be good to have them back. Like the buzz is in the air when they're back. And so like that's when you kind of feel it.
When you go into Ann Arbor and the students are back and there's kids that like the kids are out on their porches playing beer die, beer pong, whatever it is at this point. Like it does feel different in Ann Arbor. And I love like, even as an adult, I'm living vicariously while I drive by and watch them because it's like Wednesday at like 2 p.m. and they're just like beer dying it up. And I'm like, dude, I would kill to be you.
Oh, 100%. I always get my haircut at Coach and 4 right on State Street. So whenever I go there, I'll be like walking in, like especially during August, like welcome week, right as the students are moving in. Also, I once scheduled an appointment on move-in day unknowingly, and it was the worst experience of my life. But like I'll walk in and I'll just see there's a house across the street. And they're always out there with just like a Home Depot table playing beer pong. And I just feel like I'm Squidward in the meme looking at SpongeBob and Patrick because I'm going to get my haircut. And then I'm going home to do nothing.
Yeah.
You know, so like, yeah, to your point, living vicariously through them. But at the same time, we get after a little bit, maybe a little washed. But Saturdays in the fall, home game, like we get after it. But yeah, you can definitely feel the weather shifting, although it's still been super hot, but you can kind of feel some of those things that give you the vibe that it's football season. And I know a lot of high schools are starting their two-a-days. One of my best friends is a high school coach in Ohio, and they started today on the 1st. So you just kind of can tell like football's coming, and you're starting to have those conversations with the people that you talk about, whether it's Michigan football or whatever, like you have those conversations, like my uncle and I, that's how we kind of stay in touch. And yesterday the phone call was like, who do you think the quarterback's going to be, talking about the team, the schedule. Like you just start to have those conversations more and more. And you just know the season is literally right around the corner. I mean, Michigan plays a game this month.
Yeah. That is that part's kind of weird too, that it's August 31st. I know in reality it's like a day earlier than it normally is or whatever. And I think it might have been August 31st last year too. I don't know.
I can't remember.
How do calendars work?
I think it would have been September 1st.
Yeah, that does sound right.
Maybe. I don't know.
Smart enough to fully know.
I'm not super in tune with like when Labor Day falls every year because that's when it's going to be, so.
Yeah. What I do know though is we had a meeting with North Peak Brewing, so I poured myself a Hail IPA for this podcast, which talk about feeling like football's back. Drinking a Hail IPA and, talking Michigan football, that's football's back.
I think when it comes to fall, the beverages you drink, like you just feel a certain way when it's a little cooler.
Yeah.
You may reach for the Hail IPA. Hail IPA is great 365 days a year.
Correct.
But there are
it's a little better
moments. Yeah.
In
and like fall. I'm a big cider guy, so like Blake's hard cider, they come out with their caramel apple. They have an apple pie one. Like, you start to get those seasonal drinks. You get the pumpkin latte over at Starbucks. I don't really partake in that. That's more of a thing for my wife. But like I know that means football's coming, and it pairs really well with the fall. Like I mentioned on another podcast, I love hoodie weather. I love flannel weather. Like, let me wear some jeans. I'm not sweating my ass off. Like, this is the best time of the year, not only just for football. It's a big part of it, but like all the things that come with fall are like my favorite things.
Well, it is. But I hope you don't take offense to this. It's big guy season.
It is.
Fall is perfect big guy season.
100%.
Where everyone's been all summer long. It's been all right. You got to take your shirt off. Got to get on the boat. I'm worried about like, all right, did I do enough push-ups this morning? Because I definitely have not been working on the abs. So that is kind of like, as I've gotten older, instead of trying to like have my abs, I realized like It's really hard. I eat like shit. I drink all the time. Like, I'm not going to have abs. So I've just been working on getting my chest bigger to make up for it. So it's like, okay, his chest is at least proportional enough instead. So that's been just a little tidbit for you, for anybody out there as you're getting older.
This is not just a Michigan football podcast. This is a all-encompassing, and sometimes we talk about whatever the hell's going on.
We're educating out there. But then you flip the calendar to fall, and it's like, all right, now I can fill out that gut a little bit if I need to. You can put the hoodie over top. The tough thing is those early games, like,
it's hot.
It's hotter than hell. Are you kidding me? That's usually what happens. Is I think in my head it's fall because it's September, right? And then you get in the stadium for that noon Texas kick, and it's gonna be boiling. I'm not sure if my body is ready for that.
Yeah, man. I can tell you the last few like home openers and then maybe the second, third home game of the year, it's just like I'm just tan. Like I get burnt and then I tan really well. So yeah, because it's like 90 degrees. So thinking about the weather with fall camp, like it's a really good way for these guys to go and get conditioned. I did read though, and Justin, I'd love to know your thoughts on this, but I read that Michigan under Sherrone Moore is kind of adjusting its fall camp schedule to being a little bit earlier in the morning to avoid some of the the peak temperatures in the mid to late afternoons. So hopefully it's a way to kind of keep guys fresh, but then also are they going to be ready for that 90-degree kickoff against Texas on September 7th?
Yeah, I mean, I believe they are practicing more in the morning. I don't know like exactly what their camp schedule is, to be honest with you, but my gut says that they're going to be ready for it no matter what. Like, I mean, so too. I think they're going to be fine. I think it's more of an us issue because I look at pictures of like Will Johnson and Colston Loveland and Alex Orji and on and on. They do have abs. So like 8 to 10 to 12 sometimes it does look like that.
Well, I'm really excited to kind of see how Justin Tress does taking over as a strength and conditioning coach for Michigan after Justin Herbert left. I think that was a big part of Michigan's run over the last 3 years was Herb coming in and really getting this team to kind of look the part. I don't know if you've ever had this thought, but pre-2021, I just remember watching other teams or even watching Michigan games where I'm like, man, Michigan just doesn't stack up. That's not the case anymore. This team, when I watch, like, I don't know if you've been watching the Michigan Made videos. Those are incredible that the athletic department puts out. Like, they've crushed it this year on those. I'll watch those when I'm doing cardio at the gym or whatever. And
we're just fitness guys, honestly.
Big time. I'm trying to
listen,
get back
that people think that podcasting is easy, but we're just in the gym grinding over
100%. Yeah. But these guys look ready, to your point. I think they had a great summer program. I know they had a really good spring too.
Well, didn't Herb come back and say that was something I saw? Herb came back and said there have been he like watched a workout and he said nothing's changed. There hasn't been any like step back or anything under Tress, which is awesome to hear.
Which also, if there's any guy that I would choose that I know is not going to bullshit someone, it's going to be a strength and conditioning coach. So you know that's got to be pretty spot on.
He's not just saying that just to say that.
He's not here to make your feelings, make you feel good, right? No, like he's a bit of a psycho. I think every strength and conditioning coach is, and that's a good thing. So it sounds like Tress is also, a little bit of that in him as well. So I'm excited to see those guys and what the work they put in. The moment the championship game ends, I mean, within a week or two, they're back grinding. Like they're back.
Crazy.
They're back at Al Glick. They're in the weight room. And so they're working towards another national championship. That's kind of the goal now. That's the expectation, which is great to say as a Michigan fan. I love saying that, by the way.
Absolutely. Setting the expectation is a national championship. I love that because for a long time it was like, oh, your standards are 9-3, blah, blah, blah. Fuck off. Our standard is a natty now. And I'll say that we keep just going at our boys down in Nebraska, but the standard is not being complacent. So, no, I do think, the boys. So as you said, the boys reported to camp on Wednesday. So they're a couple days in to fall camp at this point. I do think that the vibe I'm getting from the guys, from the program right now, is something that I really, really love. And that is, even though you're the defending national champions, they're going into camp like we're underdogs. Nobody believes in us. And I love that from the outside media perspective, even probably some people in Ann Arbor, right? That are like, yeah, we lost Jim, we lost JJ, we lost Blake, lost all these guys. We can't do it again. We can't go back to back and, blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of these guys are going into camp right now, taking that to heart. And so I do think, one thing I wanted to talk about was like the culture of Sharon Moore that he's instilling right now. There wasn't really a step back in culture either. So there wasn't a step back in that strength and conditioning, but there also, I would have thought, with everything that they lost, I would have thought, all right, are there going to be some locker room issues? Are there going to be some issues with like trust in the coaching staff? But the reality is, it actually sounds and seems like Sharon has set the standard for the culture side as well. And I think the guys have completely bought in. And my gut tells me that that's what this camp is about right now.
Yeah, I think with Sharon, the continuity is a big part of it, right? Because he's been here since 2017. So he has seen kind of the ups and downs that Michigan experience before 2021, and then the high that the program's been on the last 3 years, capping it off with the national championship last year. So I think with Sharon, the other thing, national champ, 15-0. Okay. Only the 14 to go 15-0. Yeah. Okay. But now they have a chance to go 16-0 with the expanded playoffs.
That's true. That's true.
But so with Sharon too, like just listening to him, watching the interactions with players, it's very clear that he is a player's coach. And so I think that's extremely important to note, because the reason the culture has been so strong is that it's been player driven, right? You start in 2021 with guys like Aiden Hutchinson. You think about even Blake as a younger guy, Cade McNamara too, we'll give him his flowers. There's so many guys that you can point to as kind of a turning point for the culture that said, I don't want to be a part of Michigan football like it was in 2020, right? And so you have guys that take it upon themselves to really help strengthen and lead the team as a player-led program versus a coach-led program. Now, it's not to say that you can't do either, but I think when you have a player-led program, there's more accountability amongst players, making sure that you are going as hard as you can every single rep, and that when you criticize somebody, it's not taken any other way other than, hey, man, we need to get better. We need to go 100% every single rep, no matter what drill we're doing, no matter what lift we're a part of, no matter what meeting we're in. We need to give it our all. So I think that's going to be something that you look at with a lot of the guys that have been here for the last 3 or 4 years that are going to continue to make sure that culture remains in place. And then the hope is that the freshmen that are coming in see it, and it just continues and continues. It's a cycle every single year that when those freshmen come in, that they kind of get introduced and are taught how it goes and how the standard is at Michigan. And so by the time that they're seniors, they're doing the same thing to the incoming freshmen when they're older.
Well, I think that you've seen that, right? We've talked about this where Aiden was the person for that as a senior, while JJ and Donovan came in, right? And that was the bookend there. And I think that is continuing on. And I think that where you might not have as vocal guys as a JJ. JJ is not like super vocal, but he as an Aiden Hutchinson. But I think what you have in this team is these guys work their asses off in the locker room. And so in the weight room. And so when you as a freshman are coming into the fold, you see what Kenneth Grant is doing in the weight room. And I imagine it's pretty damn impressive, right? But you see Colston Loveland, Will Johnson getting after it and how they go about their business. And they have, Donovan Edwards himself has matured so much over the past 4 years, and I'm really proud of him for it. And I think that is what these young kids are seeing now is, a lot of these guys aren't as vocal. We know Dono's got a hell of a personality. He's definitely loud and likes to be, around there. But I think that a Mason Graham, a Kenneth Grant, those guys are not super vocal, but they're going to go out there, no bullshit, get their shit done. Right. And they're not messing around when they need to to get after it. And so I think that that's what you're going to see from, you know, the leadership of this group that we have right now is how hard they're working. And so I think that, you know, to be honest, I think this fall camp is incredibly important for the next 5 years under Sharon Moore. How do they set the standard for what's going on? How do they, you know, how do they go about their stuff? How do they study? How do they get in the meetings? How do they go out and practice? It really is going to set the standard, because if there's any lapse in any of that, then these young guys are going to think like, all right, I can slack off a little bit. But I think that, you know, what I love is there are a lot of position battles going on right now where I'm willing to bet that guys are going crazy hard to win those position battles. And so I think that it's, you know, what I think this camp is it's like a lot of guys going balls to the wall to get ready for this season come August 31st.
Absolutely, man. I mean, obviously there's the big one at quarterback that we can talk about. There's some others though. I mean, center, you've got 2 fourth-year guys, Greg Crippen, Raheem Anderson, that you know, been kind of the next up. And then Michigan goes the last 2 years and gets an elite center in the portal. But those are 2 guys that have bid their time and, you know, probably could have started the last 2 years, either one of them. But obviously you go and get Olu. I mean, I was just thinking, by the way, off topic, I was like, man, if there's one guy I really wish I could have got a national championship, there's a lot of them, but a guy would have been Olu, because what he did to that center position for Michigan. But so you got 2 guys there that are, you know, big time recruits coming out of high school, have been in the program for 4 years, have gone through, you know, this will be each of their 4th fall camps. And, you know, this is that kind of that moment when those guys are able to kind of take the reins. So you've got a big position battle there. What are the other ones that you're kind of looking at, Justin? Those are kind of the 2 that really come to mind. I mean, I know quarterback's easy, but
QB, think. I mean, everyone's talking about quarterback right now. I mean, we've been talking about the quarterback battle for 8 months now, right?
Yeah.
But you know, one that I'm looking at on the offensive side of the football is the wide receiver position. I think it is a position where you're going to have a lot of new guys. You know, most of the production from the last 2 years is gone in Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson. And so what I'm looking at is, where are some young guys going to step up? You know, you have Tyler Morris, who obviously came on in the Rose Bowl, but the reality is of Tyler Morris is he wasn't a huge part of that offense until that Rose Bowl play, right? And so now with him possibly being the guy, the go-to guy, you know, how is that wide receiver position? You know, how's he going to live up to that? And then you've got the young gun in Fred Moore that's coming up that didn't get much play last year, but a lot of people are talking about him. Our guy Peyton O'Leary, love Peyton. Talk about biding their time. Last year at this time, he was battling for time, even, you know, with the crowded wide receiver room last year. Got some injuries during fall camp, which set him back pretty much for the full year. And so he's healthy right now. And I'm looking for Peyton O'Leary to make a stamp on that wide receiver position. And then two transfers that are coming in. One that has been in Ann Arbor before, Amarion Walker. Let's see what Amarion can do. We really have never seen him as a wide receiver go crazy. You know, when he was actually getting some run, he was at the defensive back position as a sophomore here. Well, he's back now. He's a senior. He's wearing the number 1. What is Amarion Walker going to be like is a big question mark for me. And then CJ Charleston. You know, I don't know a ton about CJ, but I think that he's going to add depth. He's quick. I know that. I think he's a redshirt senior. So I think that he is, you know, he brings experience to that room too, which is a room that really, really needs some experience. So looking at, obviously I haven't even mentioned Samaj at the, you know, at the slot, Amarion Stewart as a freshman, Kendrick Bell coming in. Yeah, we'll see how those guys all stack up. I think, you know, as with Sharon Moore's offense being so dynamic all the time, you need a lot of different guys. And so I think I could see them going into these first few games saying, hey, we're going to roll with whoever's working, whoever's making plays here. And at the wide receiver position, it's going to be like you make a play, you stay in.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think Samaj is definitely going to be the guy that I'm most intrigued to see. I mean, the one thing that I was kind of had the thought of is I really hope that he's just hitting the jugs machine, man, because you think about electric with the ball in his hands, but you got to catch the ball first. And, he had that big drop in the Rose Bowl. I mean, it all, doesn't matter, right? Michigan did win the national championship, as we pointed out earlier. But to get him the ball, make sure he catches the ball, make sure you watch the ball into your hands and then go, because he is absolutely electric. I would assume too, we could probably talk about, real quick later on, but I would assume that he's going to be the returner as well. I know Morris had some of those duties last year along with Jake Thaw, but I think Samaj is such an electric athlete that he's got to be the guy. But then again, he had the drop on the muff punt against Alabama after Michigan had forced a big punt early in that game. So Samaj, I'm very excited to see this year. I think, freshman to sophomore, typically when you see that big leap. But Tyler Morris, really excited to see his progression as a guy who's another year older in the program. You think about Freddie Moore. I mean, the thing about Freddie is you could just see I don't know if he's got the highest top end speed, but man, he's quick to cut. He's quick to decelerate. He's got great change of direction. I think he's going to be a guy. He made some plays in the spring game. He got some run against ECU early in the season as well, in the first game of last season. So excited to see him. And then, some of the, I guess, quote unquote newcomers, Amarion, we know he's a freak. I don't know how much we've all seen of him at receiver because he spent the last year at corner, but coming back to Ann Arbor, freak athlete, really excited to kind of see him. I'm with you. I'm not, don't have a ton on CJ Charleston, but then I am excited to, Marion Stewart, big time recruit coming in. I think that he's going to be Amarion. Like we got to, I don't know. Is that ever happened before?
How are we going to, I mean, they're not making it easy on us.
No.
So they're not making it easy.
P-Dog, love to see Peyton get some run. I mean, he played in the Big Ten championship last year at receiver. He had a touchdown catch against Nebraska. And then you've got Ronnie Bell's little brother, Kendrick Bell, redshirt freshman. I don't know if he's going to be in there, but there's a lot of uncertainty, but also some guys that have, made some plays in their career, and you hope that they can be more consistent with an expanded role in the offense in 24.
Yeah, I definitely agree. One other position that I'm looking for, which doesn't get a ton of talk out there, but it's the cornerback position. The reason it doesn't get a lot of talk is because we have the best cornerback in the nation. And a lot of people like to talk about Will Johnson, and there's no doubt that they should. But who's going to be on the other side of Will Johnson? And I think, we had obviously a phenomenal secondary last year. And there still are some question marks with Rod Moore out too. So you're asking the question there, but I think that there is a very good chance that the redshirt freshman Jair Hill comes in and takes that other side from the for the corner position next to Will Johnson. And so I wouldn't be shocked at that. I think you also saw Michigan bring in a bunch of secondary transfer kids. And so you've got Amir Hall that is coming in as a redshirt senior. He's a transfer that could add some depth and add some experience. And then
he was an All-American in the FCS level too at Albany.
Right.
He was first team All-Conference, second team All-American. So, and as you see, when you look at the NFL, like FCS guys can ball. Like there's no, you know what I mean? Like there's no reason that he can't come in and play well.
I think that's going to be a good battle. And I think that even though everyone is going to say like, everyone's going to point to that as a weak spot of our defense, right? Just because it's somebody new. But I actually think between the two of those guys, you're going to have some pretty damn good talent over there on the other side of Will Johnson.
Yeah. And you've got Ricky Johnson, who's a transfer coming in from UNLV as well, who will be a fifth-year guy. So I think there's going to be a lot of competition at that second corner spot. I'm also curious on the nickel corner. Mike Samersel's gone. As much as it hurts to say, he is in the NFL
I don't
now.
like to really think about that, to be honest.
What a guy.
What a guy.
But he's with the Washington Commanders, And well, as you know, he just, that's I can't even encompass it in words. He means so much.
No, you can't. It's hard to put it into words.
It really is, man.
No, but I think to your point at the nickel spot, does Jaden McBurrow step in there? He definitely got some play last year while some other guys were injured. So he's definitely the most tenured of Michigan's roster to step into there. But what I do know too is that Michigan really likes Zeke Berry as him coming in. So there's a chance. I wouldn't be shocked. So be on the lookout for Jair Hill and Zeke Berry to be both in there as underclassmen in that secondary. I just don't be shocked when that possibly happens.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Zeke as well. Every time he comes on the field, he just flashes. I mean, even his first game against Colorado State, I was actually right where it happened. He just the closing speed on the play that he made. I mean, it's Colorado State, right? And it's late in the second half, Michigan's blowing him out, but he just pops athletically. Watching his high school film, I always was extremely impressed with, the speed that he plays with. So he's definitely a guy that I think will get some run. I think Jaden McBurrows will as well. He's a guy that, had some injuries, but was really talked about, especially in 2021 leading into the Georgia game. And I think he tore something in those bowl practices, but was getting a lot of hype. And so he's kind of had to work his way back. But I think that he's a guy, he had an interception against Michigan State last year. So you can really kind of rotate these guys. There's a couple other transfers in the secondary that'll kind of shuffle in at the safety position. I think the thing that, it sucks regardless. It always sucks, but especially when, your guy who would have maybe been your defensive captain goes out with an injury in spring practice. The thing that sucks really bad about that is that I think he could have played nickel. And so Michigan would have been able to have even more creativity with their defense if you slide Rod Moore down to the nickel corner spot. And then some of these guys that came in can kind of replace him as safety. So, who knows? It seems like people are kind of talking about a potential for him to maybe work through that injury towards the end of the year. If there's a game that he wants to play and it's at the shoe. Right. So I don't know. We're not going to speculate on that, but if Michigan had Rod, this defense would be even scarier. But as it is, it still feels like a top 5 defense in the country. So you have Wes Walker coming in from Tennessee as well, who's a safety. So I don't know what those position battles look like because I think Makari is so entrenched in his position. Yeah. And I'll be honest, I haven't looked at where does he slot? Where does this guy play? Where did he play at Tennessee? I haven't really kind of looked at that, but there's a lot of talent back there. Obviously, they got Mangum from Michigan State as well at safety. That's going to be a guy that I think is a longer-term play as well, but he's going to get some run too. So, a position that kind of, at corner, you're still a little unsure just because Jair Hill hasn't played for that second corner. Obviously, you know what you're getting with the best player in the country. Right. But, they did a great job in the, after the spring portal. Yeah, the spring portal too, to go and get guys that are going to be depth pieces. They really kind of loaded up the back end of the defense when that was a little bit of a concern. Obviously you have Will Johnson, you got Makari, and even before Rod's injury, that was kind of it, right? You were unsure of these guys, but you went and got some guys that have, played big time ball. And I'm honestly really excited about Amir Hall. I can't wait to see how he kind of translates. He's an All-American. FCS guys go to the NFL all the time. FCS guys can
all the
play.
Time.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm like a big playoff. I watch a lot of FCS ball because there's nothing else on. I love Montana State.
You had to be I'm a big FCS guy, and then you had to stop yourself because you knew people would be like, dude, who's a big FCS guy?
No.
You almost out-nerded yourself.
Yeah, no. But I love watching the playoffs, man, and that's legit football. That's really, really good football. And the same thing too, just to add on to that point, you can find guys that can play in the NFL at the Division II level, maybe guys in the NAI level, and even in the D3 level. So you can go and find legit football players at every level of college football. So I'm really excited about Amir Hall, man. I think he could be a big piece for us. And we saw it last year with Josh Wallace, right? They're not the same player, different size, exactly. Different height, but coming in from UMass, which let's be honest is basically FCS, to come in and he was huge. Think of all the plays. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Okay.
I just
but think of all the plays that Josh Wallace made last year, and especially 100%,
he was gigantic for Michigan. So yeah, I actually, to your point, I truly believe that those transfers that they're bringing in on the secondary will be the difference for Michigan on the defensive side of the ball. There will be times when we are relying on Amir Hall and on and down the roster there. I think that there will be times that it's like, all right, we've got Wesley Walker, Amir Hall, Jaden Mangum, and Ricky Johnson. And it's like, all right, that's, we have them in the rotation here. And I think we're going to point to a time midway through the year where it's like, all right, we're freaking really glad that we got those guys. So I'm pretty excited about that. Is there anywhere else on the field that you are looking at for depth chart battles? I know you talked about the center position. Anything else on the O-line?
I mean, it feels like Preeb's going to start. Miles Hinton's going to start, right? So you have your left side of the line. Then you got Gio El Hadi at right guard. He's a guy that played really well when Trevor Key was out and then didn't play much last year.
But let me tell you something. First of all, I love Gio. Gio, I do agree with you. I think he's going to start. But I believe as the new rosters came out on mgoblue.com, Nathan Afobe was one of the guys that gained the most weight. I think
which is only good.
Only good. But yes, that is good for an O-lineman.
when guys lose weight, it's like, oh, is he faster? Is he quicker off the line?
Right.
But then when he adds weight, it's like, oh, he's stronger, he's beefier. You know, you do both ways.
It's great for if they're on our side, then it's great. If an Ohio State guy is gaining 25 pounds, I'm like, oh, well, so he didn't do anything this year. He's just coming in overweight. But yeah, I wanted to throw that out there because I did see that Nathan Afobe, he's only a redshirt freshman, so he's still young, and I expect Gio El Hadi to start. I'm just saying, maybe he makes a push there. That's also when your redshirt freshman is putting on 22 pounds, that's a good thing. That's a really, really good thing for the future.
Yeah, and I mean, we joke about it, but like most of the time, that it is good weight gains, right? Because they're in a controlled environment. Like they're not, they're always checking in on their weight. They're working with the nutritionist
every single day.
Abigail O'Connor, right? She does a great job from what I've.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Also, she had a great tweet the other day at the barbecue at the Big House because in the past at the barbecue at the Big House, we got roasted for having like hot dogs and chicken tenders, right? It was not an unbelievable spread. This year they literally did a pig roast. She had a whole pig. They had barbecue. They had all of it. She put out a tweet of the plate and said, "Roast me now."
Yeah, so I saw that with double entendre.
Double entendre.
Roasted pig.
No, great tweet.
Yeah. My thing though is always with that is like, first of all, who cares? But second of all, like, I'm sure they have like multiple selections, and high school kids gravitate towards the chicken tenders and hot dogs.
I like chicken tenders.
Yeah, what's the problem?
I don't know that there's a problem. I love chicken tenders and mac and cheese. So I agree with you that 100%. The like when they were roasting Michigan for the spread, it was also like Ohio State fans that are just chronically online and don't have anything better to do. And honestly, at the time, didn't have anything better to talk about because we had just kept beating them. Yeah,
they're probably the same ones that are like, oh, I bet you joined Twitter in 2021, as if that's like, I see that so much, by the way. Like,
why is that the new thing?
Like, could somebody not have gotten a Twitter until like, I don't
Well, you're not allowed to be a fan without a Twitter. I wasn't aware of that.
Understand that. And then I asked somebody today, I was like, who cares? Like, what does this even mean? And then they were like, you obviously care. And then it was the Sharon crying gif. And I was like, all right, this person's,
well, we talked about that one too, where the Sharon crying gif is a literal compliment because it was after one of the most pivotal moments of our entire season that we won and led to a national championship. But
I digress. Sharon Moore has a 100% win rate in the game. So right tackle Andrew Gentry, I'm so excited about him. Like he's the 23-year-old redshirt sophomore, was committed to Virginia, went on his 2-year mission, and after he was a top 100 recruit, like big time recruit. Like a lot of us were disappointed that he chose Virginia because Bronco Mendenhall was at BYU, right? So that there's a lot of connections there. And Bronco Mendenhall retired, and so he just finds out during the middle of his mission, and they allowed him to contact for Michigan to call him. And he's like, yeah, I'm coming to Ann Arbor. So he's been here 3 years now, coming on his 3rd year. Those missions are they're not really able to like work out like the way you need to stay in shape. So probably a lot of like rebuilding going on with his physique. But like, man, you watch his high school film, nasty, mean streak, just pancaking dudes. And he's 6'8", 330.
He's gigantic.
I am so excited for him.
Preeb are so big.
Like I am just so excited.
And actually, you want to know who's even bigger than them is Miles. Miles is probably the biggest player on the team. KG's pretty fucking huge too.
But yeah, I mean, honestly though, like I mean, there will be some O-line battles, I'm sure. I mean, you've got some guys like Jeff Percy. He started against Rutgers a couple years ago when Ryan Hayes was hurt, I think. You've got some older guys. I mean, Evan Link is a redshirt freshman. He's a guy that was a big time recruit, like big time. So he may be the left tackle next year. But then you've also got younger guys like Andrew Sprague, who was a big time recruit, Blake Frazier. Like there's so much talent in the O-line room. Like it's so nice to talk about it in this way versus like 2015 when you're like, yeah.
Even later on, I know we were talking about the O-line, but like the D-line, when it's Ben Mason's our nose guard.
Brother, those were some dark times in our life. Well, so that's a good segue though, Justin, because obviously Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, and then you've got Rayshawn Benny, who kind of slides, a couple different spots. But I'm really curious, Michigan likes to rotate. And I don't know if Wink Martindale is going to want to do that as much as they have, but Michigan even, the whole Harbaugh era really liked to rotate D linemen, keep them fresh, right? So a guy like Mason Graham can come through and get a 4-yard tackle for loss in overtime against Bama, right? So I'm really curious. Like Trey Pierce is a guy that I've been big on since he committed. He's kind of more of an interior guy. I'm really curious if Ike Iwana, or it might be EK. I don't know. Is it EK?
I don't even know, to be honest.
He was a guy that committed right before 2021. So this is his redshirt junior year. And we were all just like, oh my gosh, like a defensive tackle size defensive tackle. He hasn't played a lot. So I'm curious what the development has looked like there. I believe Michigan flipped him from Colorado. There's my recruiting mind working. But yeah, there's some other position battles too. Like who's going to be Brooks. He's a redshirt freshman. So I wonder if some of these guys are like a year away. Just need another year in the oven. But like at the edge position, I'm really curious. Like we've heard a lot about Keyshawn Bennett at times, and it's always like he's a year away. Well, is this the year? And then TJ Guy's been getting hyped up by a lot of his teammates as well. So like who's going to be
TJ? I think TJ is going to have a pretty big breakout year. I wouldn't be shocked at Eno Etta either.
Well, he beefed up. I think he's going to slide to like the Chris Jenkins role. Yeah. So he's going to be like a 5-tech. Because even when he came in, he was like 280, and I always thought typically you can kind of tell like how big a kid is. Like if they're just gonna put on weight from the strength and conditioning and the nutritional program, then they get to college. Like he's gonna be a guy that slides in, but if he can keep that quickness that he showed in his high school film, like he's gonna be a guy in the future. And then like linebacker, obviously Jay-Sean Barham coming in from Maryland, and then Ernest Hausman in his second year after transferring from Nebraska. Like those are going to kind of be the two main linebackers. But then Jimmy Rolder is back, hopefully healthy. Like he had some injuries last year, but I liked a lot what I saw from him his freshman year. You've got Jaden Hood, who's been in the program a little bit longer. You got Jason Hewlett, Christian Boivin. Wait, how do you say it again? Boivin. Yeah, very fitting with the Paris Olympics right now. But yeah, there's a lot. I mean, we're nerds, so I look at like the depth chart and stuff, and there's a lot of guys that I'm really excited for. Like I think about the third tight end too. Like I don't know how Michigan sometimes will go 13 personnel. So like obviously it's going to be Colson, most likely going to be Marlon Klein, and then is it going to be Zach Marshall, Deacon Tonelli? Is Prescore going to get in there? Like what does it look like?
I like Zach Marshall. I think he's up and comer. He needs to probably put on some more weight and get a little bigger.
He's good in NCAA.
Great in NCAA. I think Marlon Klein. Hey, I have been told by multiple people, including Colston Loveland, Marlon Klein is the best athlete on the team.
I'm excited.
Freak athlete. I think he's a great athlete. He's going to be a great tight end too. So expect everyone. I don't know about everyone. That was probably a bad choice of words there, but a lot of people I'm assuming were like, okay, Barner's gone. Now who do we go to? Because I think Barner also very slept on, a very good tight end.
Love AJ Barner. His game against MSU was ridiculous.
There are 10 teams plus in the Big Ten that would take AJ Barner as tight end 1 right now. I'll tell you that. But I don't think there's going to be that big of a drop off. I think Marlon Klein's going to have a pretty damn good year. I'm pretty excited for him to finally have his chance. So I'm pretty excited. All right. We want to move on to a different
I think we covered a lot of that, and I'm sure as more intel comes out that we'll discuss that as we get sound bites from the coaches. That's how you can kind of tell, like, hey, who's ready now versus who's ready a year from now. Like, if you listen to those pressers and like kind of like understand what those coaches are saying, you can kind of get an idea of like what they're actually saying. Versus
you want to know what my favorite thing was of Jim Harbaugh, though, because he, it like
everybody.
Well, yes, it would physically hurt him to like give away information at all. And so somebody would ask him like, so who's really showing out? And he'd literally just name the entire roster. He'd go, and it wouldn't even be in like a smooth way. And I'd honestly be very impressed at his ability to just be like, rattle off 20 names just off the top of his head. And that was one of my favorite Harbaughisms for sure. Which again, I'm very excited. Like, I think Sharon's super well spoken. He's done really, really well for being somewhat thrown into the position that he's in. But it'll be interesting to see what Sharon gives in terms of information. As I also saw. Okay, so for Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert went down with a plantar fasciitis injury, right?
Yeah.
Which is tough for the Chargers for sure. But the Chargers tweeted out the injury. And I'm just thinking like somebody had to have the conversation with Jim to be like, so coach, we have to like tell the world that this happens. We'll actually put it out. And he's like, why the fuck would we put that out there? Like, why would we ever do that? And like him probably learning, because he's been out of the NFL for quite some time, him learning like the new protocol that you have to just like put out injuries like that. Like it's very funny to me because obviously we know that was hurt. It hurt him to do.
Well, how many times would you see when the Big Ten incorporated their injury report, like 2 hours before kickoff? Like, how many times did you just see like 20 guys on there?
Many guys. Anybody
like we freak out.
Anybody who had a hangnail was put it on there just to throw people off.
Yep.
Oh, so good. All right. This is something that it actually started from a conversation I had on the golf course with a couple guys a few weeks ago, and I wanted to bring it to the podcast here because it's a good conversation. Tough conversation. And so I think I want to go through our Michigan football Mount Rushmore. Now, we're going to start, I believe. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start at the turn of the century, or do you want to start at like in 1980? Because I think I don't want to go all the way back. We talked about this. I don't know Tom Harmon. I'm sure he's on the Mount Rushmore. Great player, iconic, 98, did a lot of things, got the standing ovation at the shoe, as you said. I'm gonna make it more modern than that. So can we start at 1980?
I do like the idea of doing the 21st century, but I'll defer to you on this one.
All right, 21st century. There we go. Well, that's what we're doing. It's your it's your thing. It's your thing, dude.
I gave you my opinion and said you could make the decision, and that's the decision you made. This is gonna be hard.
It is gonna be hard. All right. I think we gotta. We'll go snake draft style, but you can still choose like whoever you want. You know what I mean?
That's
we'll
fine.
just go back and forth.
Okay.
All right. Who's your first pick? Who's like your no-brainer is going on there?
Blake Corum. That's so easy.
It is easy. I think it's easy. I mean, he is absolutely like he's the biggest piece to national championship run. So I definitely agree with you. All right. So I'm also going to go Blake Corum. So Blake Corum's on mine as well. Okay.
Are they just going to be the same? Because, like, I don't know. Maybe I am wrong. Like, 2000, like, so you have, like, 2000 to 2007, and then you just have a bunch of dog shit, and then you have 2015 until now.
Yeah.
So you're basically actually, like, what? You're, like, 16 years of football, 17 years.
I think the 1980 thing makes it a little bit harder. But you are, like, we'll keep going. Let's keep going. We'll see how this goes.
Okay. I think there's, you know what, I'll say this too. I think there's going to be some guys that could be on this list after this year. Another year.
Wow. Okay. I like that.
I mean, there's 2 top 5 picks on this team. So
there might be like 3 top 10 picks on this team.
Yes. Maybe more. Who knows? Man, this is just going to be like, so 2000. I'm gonna throw it back a little bit, and I'm gonna say Braylon Edwards.
Okay.
I mean, you have to. His 3 years as his sophomore, junior, senior years were all ridiculous.
That is a fact. He was an absolute god when he was here.
In 2003 against Ohio State, he had a huge game to win that game, and in 2004, we know what happened at Braylon Fest. I mean, you know, that was also kind of my coming into football.
I agree. That was the Braylon Edwards was me becoming a Michigan fan.
Yeah.
I was 12 years old, and that was like, I'd always been a Michigan fan, but that was when I was yelling at my dad, like, we have to be in front of a TV on Saturdays.
Yeah. So in 2003, I was 8. And that was the first like football season that I like remember. Like I actually was like, oh, I remember these games, and I remember Michigan kicking the shit out of Notre Dame at the Big House. And I always remember I lived in Indiana at the time, and I remember one of the local newspapers on the front page said "Big Flop at the Big House," and it was Michigan 38, Notre Dame nothing. So that was always one of my fondest memories. But yeah, Braylon was absolutely ridiculous, and I think you got to put him on there.
So,
This is hard, dude.
It is hard because, then also from that same era-ish, do you need to put Mike Hart on there? He's the all-time leading rusher.
So
did you forget about Mike Hart?
No, I didn't forget about Mike Hart, but my thing is that Braylon Edwards beat Ohio State. I know. So that's tough to say. I love Mike Hart, but like that matters.
So this is where when we got into it, it's like, okay, where do you rank like a national championship plus beating Ohio State, but then like Mike Hart, he's all-time leading rusher, right? Like, yeah, obviously 4-0 versus Michigan State, that still holds some stuff, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying.
I mean, I know, but and Mike Hart was on the 2004 team as a true freshman, right? So he does have a Big Ten championship, but Braylon Edwards has 2. So, like, I don't know. I get, like, and there's going to be some tough conversations with this. This may be more difficult than I had imagined. All
right. So, I agree. So I don't know if Mike Hart's on mine. I was just throwing it out there. Okay.
Okay.
So right now I have Blake Corum. My next pick is going to be Aiden Hutchinson.
Okay.
Can we agree on that one or
100%? Okay. He is like the turnaround. Sure. He is like the key figure in the turnaround.
Right. He literally is it.
And with my third pick, I'm going to pick Aiden Hutchinson.
Okay.
He's second in the Heisman. If he picks that ball off against Ohio State, remember when he was like a fingertip away? If he picks it off, that's his Heisman moment. Or if Bryce Young loses against Bama or against Auburn, he might have won the Heisman.
Literally. Yeah. I mean, you have the MSU sack that is in the end zone. Should have been a fumble. The whole thing. Aiden Hutchinson is him. He's the key to it all. He turned it all around.
And when you like watch him when I watched him at Michigan in person, I saw him a few different times, but even his freshman year, I went to the Michigan-Nebraska game. He had a sack. Just as a true freshman, and he's younger too. Like he was younger for his class. Like just the physical traits, you could always tell he was going to be a really good one. Now, I didn't think he was going to be the second overall pick. Should have been the first overall pick, but thank you, Trent Baalke. Trent Baalke has done so much for my football fandom. One with disagreeing with Jim Harbaugh and letting him walk, and then picking Trayvon Walker in 2022. So appreciate him. You. But like when you watch Aiden Hutchinson, just maybe the best college football player that I've seen. And I've seen a lot of different guys, but like, I've seen Marvin Harrison Jr. I've seen a lot of different guys in person. The way he would move and his athleticism, like you could just tell like that guy is going to play in the NFL for a very long time. And I just saw he was number 22 on the NFL top 100 list. So going into his third year.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Dude's just a monster.
That's insane.
Yeah. You have to have him. This is where it gets tough though.
That's where I'm like the lore of these people is half of what
it's the vibes
on Mount Rushmore, right? Like it's not all just stats, and that's why I do agree with you. Unfortunately, I don't think Mike Hart's on there.
Yeah, I love Mike because national champion, 3-time Big Ten champion as a coach. Did win as a player, but it's tough, man. It's tough because you know what? You make your pick, but then I'm going to talk about on my last pick. There's some guys that I'd love to throw on here, but I just can't.
I mean, JJ has to be on there, right?
Make your pick.
JJ.
All right. So you got one more. So we both have one more. Yeah. He's also a big part of the turnaround, right? And like, I'd love to talk about Denard here. Because Denard was a very bright spot.
What about like a Chad Henne? Like there's like this is where so Dan Patrick puts it this way when he comes to talking about the Hall of Fame is he's saying it's the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Very Good. There are a lot of very good guys. And I think Chad Henne and Mike Hart are very good. And are they, are they legends in Michigan football? Absolutely. Yes. But when you have to go down to 4, it makes it tough.
It does. A guy that might have been here had he stayed at Michigan is Drew Henson. He started in the late 90s, but in 2000 went into Columbus. I mean, he played out of his mind in that game. That's a game that I had to go and watch highlights. I was 5 years old, but so another guy that you could put there. You can talk about Chris Perry. Obviously not as accomplished as far as statistical records as Mike Hart, but in 2003 was a damn good back. Was top 5 in Heisman voting.
What about other defensive guys in this century?
Lamar Woodley.
Jabril. If Jabril wins that 2016 game, we might be talking about him differently.
Probably, yeah, because then they go to the playoff, and who knows what happens because they were a really damn good team that year. Lamar Woodley. Leon Hall, Marlon Jackson. I'm trying to dig deep here. There's so many guys. I mean, a lot of people don't think about him too fondly because of, a penalty in the 2006 game, but Sean Crable was a damn good football player at Michigan.
Unbelievable.
Man. Mike Martin is a personal favorite of mine. I love Mike Martin. Like I wore 68 in high school because he was a dog.
If Luwan isn't like there at that specific time, he's probably up there, right?
Yeah. Jake Long, obviously. Jake Long. You had me thinking defense there for a sec. But yeah, Jake Long, Mario Manningham's up there. But again, it's the accomplishments, right? It's like, so 2016, gosh.
So what we did
Big butt. Yeah. I mean, there's so many guys.
So you had Blake, JJ, Aiden, and
yeah, I'm going with JJ. I didn't say that, but yeah, I'm going with JJ. So Blake, JJ, Aiden, Braylon Edwards.
I think we're probably going to have the same. But
then it's like, I mean, dude, think about last year's team. Mikey. Both Mikey.
Bro, Mikey. Like, how is Mikey not on this? You know what I mean? Like,
dude. If we did a Mount Rushmore from 21 onward, he's on here. But since we went to 2000, like there are a couple guys. Damn it, dude. Mike Sainristil is we talked about him earlier, one of just my favorite Michigan players of all time. I mean, to go from receiver for 3 years to then being the best nickel corner in the country for 2 straight years is ridiculous. And the big plays that he made at every single game at the biggest moments, every time he came through. Fuck. Damn, dude.
Dude,
I want to have Mikey on here. Man, but then I don't want it to just be 4 guys from the last 4 years.
I know there's some recency bias that definitely sets in here.
But so the thing that I've always said to myself is that when we purchase a home and I want to have a basement, like I want a man cave, I always said that I would have 3 jerseys and it would be 2, 9, and 97. After the last 2 years, I was like, well, I've got to throw number 0 in there. Like that's how I feel about Mike Sainristil. Like he's that guy.
I agree, man. It's tough. So when we did this with my buddies on the golf course, it was back to 1980. And so you have to have Charles on there.
Of course.
You have to have Desmond on there.
You can even have Anthony Carter on there. I mean, he didn't win a Heisman, but I know, but but he's
so like this it got even harder because like you had to I personally put Aiden on there because of everything we said. He changed it all. But then like you're choosing between Anthony Carter, Blake, JJ, like there's only one spot for like 6 different guys. Like,
yeah, and it's really tough too, like because when you look at Anthony Carter, like every time I go to his Wikipedia just to look at like I say every time, but like when I've gone to it, it's like ridiculous because 2-time unanimous All-American. He was a first-team All-American in 1980, so he's a 3-time All-American, 2-time unanimous. He was a Big Ten Most Valuable Player in 82. He's a Big Ten Player of the Year in 82, and he's a 3-time first-team All-Big Ten. He's one of the 50 greatest Vikings, so we're talking about his NFL career. But, like, I mean, a guy before our time, right? Like, my mom was, like elementary school. Right. But, like, you know, I got to give respect where it's given, where it's due. And that's a guy that is one of the legends at Michigan.
John Wangler was throwing footballs to him. So
shout out Valiant.
Shout out John Wangler, the GOAT. Yeah, dude, it's a hard discussion. So if you're out there listening, have this discussion with your buddies as you are sitting around drinking beer, getting ready for Michigan football this year. Or if you're going to tailgate for the first game, this has got to be a point of discussion because it's hard. So as you can tell, I don't even think we ended up with what we have because as soon as we said what we have, we're like, actually, I don't know. So we'll see. But
one last guy I want to throw in there that it's probably not on this list, but David Molk was a monster. Won the Remington. Really,
that's the tough part about linemen too. Is like you know.
Zinter, Keys, like all these guys.
Dude, Zinter, like talk about lore of Zinter. Like, I mean, he's perfect, right? Like it's
4-year starter, like All-American. Yeah, man, it's really tough to boil it down to like 4 players because there's so many that make it go because you have 115 guys on each roster for the last 25 years. Just going back to 2000 is super hard.
100%. So go have that conversation with your boys, with your crew, and let us know in the comments what you guys think. I think that'll wrap it up for us today. For us, you can follow us at Blue by 90 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 podcast on YouTube, and blueby90.com. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.